Hello everyone, welcome to my channel, and on this video we're going to be continuing reading from the documentation. This video is strictly for beginners, but if you want to learn more, stick around. So we're going to continue step 2 of the Django documentation, which is model and the admin site. The way I learned how to use Django is I went on this site and I did the tutorials and the documentation. And stick around and let's get started coding. Let's go. Well, if you go to djangoproject.com, the first thing you will see is this. You just click the documentation area here. And last video, we did part number 1. We called it Hello World. So now part 2 is going to be model and the admin site. Let's click on it and let's get coding. So we're going to do the first step here. As you can see, Django has a lot of beautiful apps that are already pre-installed. The admin site is one of them. That's what we're going to be using. There's an authentication system, a framework for content type, a session from framework, a messaging framework, a framework for managing static file. That's why I love Django. So the first thing you will see is that I've already activated my environment here, as you can see, right? It's activated, and here's my actual environment with all my files inside of it. If you watch the last video, you will know what to do. And this is our current project. This is where our setting file is. The first thing we have to do is let's try and run our project. So we're going to say Python manage.py run server. As you can see here, it says you have 18 unapplied migration. The project may not work properly until you apply the migration for the admin, etc., etc. So that is exactly what we're going to do. We're going to migrate our application into our database, database, whatever you prefer. The command is Python manage.py make migration, and then you type Python manage.py migrate. And as you can see, it migrated a bunch of stuff in here. And now when you're going to run the project, Python manage.py run server, the error won't show anymore. And let's go and take a look at our website. So that's our website. If you remember on the last video, we don't have a home page yet. We only have a polls and an admin page. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create models. So we're going to go into the polls folder and we're going to find the models.py file, and then we're going to write all this beautiful stuff. So the folder is right here, polls, and we're going to find models.py. Inside the models.py, so we're going to create a class called question. Inside the class, it's going to inherit from models.model. And inside the class, we're going to have 2 parameters, question text, and the next one is going to be called publication date. And then the question text is going to be a character field. It means it will have character inside of it. A char field. And then we have to declare the max length. And then the publication date will get a date time field. So models.date time field. There you go. And then we're going to pass a name to it. Date published. I'm going to be typing for this video, but in my future videos I am not going to type. I'm going to copy and paste. It is much better for beginners to type in every single letter of code that they can. this is a better way for your mind to actually remember the syntax. So if you copy and paste, you will not remember. But if you're typing every single line of code, most likely you're going to remember the syntax. Let's create our second model. It's going to be called choice. It's also inheriting from models. And inside the choice, you're going to have question, choice underscore text. You have to separate it. Make sure this is, yep, there you go. We're going to have a question and we're going to have votes. So we're going to that foreign key, there you go. And then we're going to pass it question, and then on delete, this will be explained later on. Models that cascade. There you go. And models that chart field max length. Then votes, models that integer field, because the votes are going to be number, and then the default is going to be 0. And we're going to save our file. And the next step is to make sure that our app can see that our poll app exists. So we're going to go to our settings and we're going to configure it so that the settings can see that the poll app does exist. So we finished creating the model. The next thing we do is we go into our setting folder and we're going to have to, well, there's a few ways to do this, but for now just write polls. Now that you have written poll, your Django can now see the poll app here. So let's run py manage.py, make migration poll. It made migration. Now Python manage.py. Migrate. There you go. And we have migrated our models into the database. As you can see, our database is right here. So we have migrated all the beautiful files. Clear screen. And now let's take a look at the next step. So we have done this. And we have done this. So we have done this. This is something that we can take a look at, but for right now, let's not play with the shell too much and get people confused. Now, this is basically what you have to write in order for you to see a text instead of a query in the backend. So we're going to write it. We're going to define str, boom. Hey, this is the new way to write it, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to leave it this way. And we're going to return self.question text. And we're going to do the same thing for this. str. And we're going to return self.choice text. And yeah, and this will allow us to see a string representation of the code and inside the backend. Well, the admin site. This is where you will be able to see a string representation instead of seeing like a query representation of it. So let's save this right here. So that's what we have just done. Now that we have provided it with this, so we're going to go into models. Okay, so the next step is we're going to add our own custom method inside the question. It basically will tell you when the question has been published, and this is the math behind it. So we're going to just place that over here. Time zone, we're going to have to import time zone and daytime. So here it is. So we import daytime, and daytime will allow us to use daytime over here. And then we're going to also import time zone. This is how you import time zone, and time zone is going to allow us to use time zone right here. We're going to save our documentation. So on this step here, we're going to be creating an admin user in order for us to actually log in the backend. And these are the commands: Python manage.py create super users, and then it's going to prompt us for a bunch of questions. Python manage.py create super user is going to ask me for my name. I'm going to keep it as Benny K. Email address hhh@live.com. Password, and create a random password again. Okay, now we have created a super user, and finally we're going to run our server in order for us to see what happened. So Python manage.py run server. Okay, now this is our server, and in order to access the backend, we're going to go to the admin, and here it is, and here's our backend. So now the backend has a bunch of stuff, but the problem is we cannot see our question. So that's the next step. As you can see, it tells us this is what we're going to see, and we're going to make the poll app appear in the admin panel. So let's go ahead and do that. So you're going to go to the admin.py, and the admin.py you're going to import from the models. We're going to import the questions. Okay, and then once we import the questions, we're going to register it in our admins that site that register, and we're going to register our question. We're going to register, and we're going to save our page, and it's going to reload for us. And now let's take a look at the backend. Backend is right here. Let's refresh, and as you can see, our question popped up. So now let's take a look at the functionality. So now we can enter a question: what is your name? And we can enter a date, we can enter the time, and then we can save. There you go. Question: what is your name? So this is step number 2. It's a little bit weird, but we'll get to step number 3. It will make it more clear. But we are able to actually create models. We migrated a bunch of stuff, and we also got to see how the backend worked. We created a super user, which is very, very, very cool. So if you like my content, make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. And I'll see you guys on the next video. Stay cool.